being completely sober was more freeing than I would have thought it would have been. I would have thought I was going to feel like this is so boring or I'm such being left out, but I really kind of enjoy it. Getting alcohol out is what opened so many floodgates. And yeah, you have to feel your feelings now, which some people are like, that's, that can be the hard part of not numbing out all the feelings anymore. But I would never go back to the numbing. The freedom that I found, by getting alcohol out, I mean, it opens up time because you're not spending 3 hours or whatever at night drinking anymore. So it opens up time and money. I feel like midlife is a great time to get all of that out, to give back time, give back money, give back your brain space to, really enjoy this next chapter. This is the secret sauce.
Hey girl, you're listening to The Samantha Parker Show, an unhinged and insider look at the girl boss lifestyle. I'm like the best friend in your earbuds that you didn't know you've been craving. It's conversations from the girls' bathroom that are going to make you smile, inspire the hell out of you, and hype you up. You are not as crazy as you think. Life is a wild ride, and girl, I invented the roller coaster. So grab your favorite beverage and let's be unhinged together. So welcome to the show. Hey, my podcast and sober besties. I am so excited. I have something amazing to share with you. Sam's Sober Stack. Like many of you, I once believed sobriety was beyond my reach. Alcohol had tightly woven itself into my life, dictating actions and thoughts until I made a bold decision to reclaim control. Now I am proud to share my journey from battling hangovers and hidden struggles to achieving a sober life full of clarity and freedom. As your self-proclaimed sober bestie, I invite you to step into my world on Sober Stack, where I offer my unfiltered story and the valuable resources I've gathered along the way. Why subscribe to Sam's Sober Stack? Well, by subscribing, you'll gain access to weekly insights and updates on navigating sobriety, my exclusive 30-day printable sober journal, an engaging community where we can uplift and support each other, subscriber-only content to help enrich your journey, and of course, I'm spilling all the tea on what has worked for me, so you can implement some of these tools and resources into your own life. Sobriety doesn't have to be a solo journey. Let's share our stories, support one another, and inspire change together. Every new drop is conveniently delivered to your inbox, offering easy-to-navigate newsletter-type content filled with powerful insights geared towards your sober success. So let's do this together. Head over to thesamanthaparkershow.substack.com or go ahead and just click the link in the show notes. Now enjoy listening to this episode of The Samantha Parker Show. Hey, Emily, thank you so much for agreeing to being on the Samantha Parker Show. I'm excited to have you. I think we're going to have a really cool dynamic conversation. So you guys, my guest today is Emily Allen, and you have a lot of I want to say accreditation. You've done, work as well around helping other people with their own sobriety and alcohol journey. But okay, I want to tell you though, what I was really most excited about having you on the show is you really talk a lot about midlife and how in your midlife and the wine culture and all of that. So I'm just going to let you take it away for a second. Introduce yourself and tell me kind of how you got to this point in your sobriety journey.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah. So I recognized that the wine mom culture is just so invasive. And when I was in it, I just didn't really appreciate how much I was being almost targeted by the ads, just everything that we see and on TV, movies, all that. So I got sober 4 years ago. Do you want me to talk a little bit about that journey too, or just more about the midlife part first?
Yeah, let's get into midlife. I was really excited because I like to offer a vast variety of perspectives, and a lot of times people get sober. Well, actually what I have noticed is a lot of people do actually get sober 30s, 40s, 50s. I almost feel like it's acceptable in your 20s to be a drunk.
Yeah.
We could talk about that as well. But I really what do you consider midlife?
I consider it like anyone who is maybe whose kids are getting ready to leave the nest. That's sort of where I'm finding I'm most drawn to, because that's sort of the phase that I'm in right now. I've got a daughter who has left. I mean, she's in college. She might come back. You never know, right?
They do. They come back. I
They
have one
come
of those.
back.
She came back.
And then my son's a sophomore in high school. So it's that sort of tricky time when you are seeing what your next chapter is going to be. And like for me, just reevaluating, like, what do I really want to just still hang on to this like wine mom where, drinking with friends and using that as just my way to basically like numb out, but also, socialize, celebrate. I felt like this is a time in my life when I could really make a change. Just even like the freedom of not having your kids need you as much, even though it can be sad if that's been your whole life up until then, it's still like you get that sense of freedom of I will be able to do things that I want to do and not have to worry about um, making sure that they're taken care of, have a babysitter, all of that. So I just see it as an exciting launch point of life when we're getting ready to move into that transition into midlife. So I would say, 40s, 50s, 60s, mid
Yeah.
is
Or,
midlife.
if you had kids when you were a baby like me, I'm still holding on to 39. I've got 39 for like 3 more weeks.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, hold on to it. No, it's good. I'm 53 and it's who knew that I would be so like doing new things when I turned I mean, I was 51, no, 50, 49, 50 when I got sober. I came trying to do the math, but just it's not a time of life you would normally think is now's the time to start like
Yeah,
doing
I
new things.
almost feel like so my brain, and I really recognize like how my brain works as an alcoholic. At first I was like, well, I just have a drinking problem and I need to stop drinking. And then I'm like, oh my God, my brain really is running the show. There's like multiple parts of it. But my brain is almost thinking like, oh, well, we could drink more if the kids were gone, you know?
Uh-huh.
We
Mhm.
could like do whatever we wanted.
Yep. Oh yeah, yeah, and that is what I was starting to realize, and I didn't have to like when my daughter started driving, well, I don't have to worry about, being completely sober at a certain time of day to pick her up from, sports or whatever because she could drive. So, yeah, you do start to see these things like, "Oh, this could be great. I can just" or if I'm not having to get get 'em up for school, then who cares if I'm, hungover if I don't have somebody else to worry about? I could just stay in bed longer. So, yeah, all of those aspects could definitely make you go, maybe this is the time to keep drinking." But
I know, it's almost like you have, like, a little asshole in your brain that's like, "Oh, but,"
yeah.
And
Oh,
then
yeah.
there's this deep down inside of you, like, you just know, you're like, "This is not the life I want," is really how I feel about it, like, I always knew, but that voice would override, especially once you started drinking.
Yeah. And I kind of had a vision one day or probably one night of like when I'm 75 and maybe have grandkids, maybe not. I was like, am I going to still have to like hide how much I'm drinking or, worry about do I have enough or what if I'm eventually in a nursing home? Is somebody going to buy me one? So I just started thinking, I don't want to be still doing this then. And if I stop then, looking back and thinking, "Well, dang, I wish I would have stopped 20 years ago instead of waiting until I was, nobody was gonna go out and buy me my box of wine anymore, so now I have to stop." Just like that future vision one day, just I was like, "I don't want to be like drunk grandma," you
You're
know?
like, "I don't like that." I've never even thought about that.
Uh,
I have that modeled a lot in my life, and,
mm,
sitting at this point, I'm like, God, it's weird to realize, like, your grandparents so my grandma and my mom, I'm like, "They're drunks. Sorry." I don't think they listen, but I'm like, "Sorry." And I've never really actually put it in that you guys for listening, like, that's a really great perspective because I've never put it into that perspective. Like, I don't wanna be, like, old and falling down.
right, yeah, and having to yeah, just having your grandkids or whatever look at you like, "Oh, my grandma's drunk again," like, it just gave me that vision was pretty powerful. I mean, I didn't stop right then, of course, but I remember it. So, yeah, it is definitely and I didn't have my family didn't drink, so I didn't see that as like a potential something that I could become. I just knew that's not what I wanted.
So I was reading, you said that your biggest wake up call came on Christmas morning of 2020, which you made it through 2020, man.
I know. Well, it ramped up.
Yeah, exactly. I yeah, I had that. Yeah, I had a little bout of sobriety in 2020 because I was like, "What am I doing?" You know,
Oh,
because everyone was like, "You just drink during the day now," and we're
right.
buying cases of liquor. It was wild. But so you said you woke up with a headache Christmas morning, which I have been there. I have been so hungover so many Christmases, but a headache and absolutely zero Christmas spirit after drinking multiple glasses of wine the night before while finishing up wrapping presents, and you're super disappointed in yourself. Was that the last time you drank or well, I know it wasn't because you said you got sober in 2021. Sorry, I'm all, here's a timeline of your life,
No.
Emily.
You're good. But it was right. So that was I stopped on January 1st. I think that that is what really made me say, "Okay, I am gonna try this." Now, I had no idea if I would survive 1 day, 2 day, 3 days of dry January, but I just knew I wanted to try. I was scared. I didn't tell anybody. I think you talked about that too. Like, I mean, I wasn't telling anybody because I didn't wanna be 4 days into dry January, drinking again, and people be like, "Oh, I thought you were gonna give this a shot." So I didn't talk about it, just tried it, and then once I realized, "Oh, I can do this," then I started being open more up about it. But, yeah, it was that sort of Christmas where I'm like, "I just do this I don't wanna do this again next year." And I felt like dry January was gonna be this opportunity where you can kinda do it without it being a big deal because so many other people are doing it, and I was like, "I'm committed." So I kinda set my quit date on that day, looking I guess it's like, what, a week and a half, or maybe it's like a week between
Yeah,
Christmas.
like a weekish. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
a blur.
It is, it's that and I didn't quit during that. I mean, I didn't even, like, cut back. It was also sort of that, like, let's just go for it and finish all the wine in the house or whatever and just get it out of here, but I didn't pour it down the sink. I managed to get rid of it.
We still have like wine and stuff in our house because I was like, I'm not gonna pour this down the sink. I just put it away.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know why though. Like, what the fuck am I gonna do with it? You know?
I know, and I thought about, do I give it to people? But then that seems kind of, like, culty, like, I don't want this
Yeah.
person, but here, why don't you take it? So
No, I have thought about that multiple times. Like, I'm going to a birthday or like, a friend's, and which is perfectly acceptable to give it to, like, to give them a bottle of wine, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what if I just gave them this? But it feels so wrong, doesn't it? I just feel like I just have this like thing in my house that the alcoholic in me is not willing to part with, but I know I don't want it, you know?
Yeah. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I didn't get rid of any of the hard liquor. I mean, we had bourbon and gin and all that. I wasn't tempted by it, but I didn't get rid of it until just, like, maybe this summer because my husband has not he didn't stop drinking when I did, but he hasn't I guess he's been almost a year now where he hasn't drank. So I'm like, "Why are we still just, like, hanging on to this?" So it's sort of symbolic and nice, but I waited, like, yeah, almost about 3.5 years before I just finally got every last drop out of the house. So,
Yeah, I know. I don't have one of those moments where like all of a sudden it's staring at me and I'm like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I haven't. If I ever do, I'll be like, this has got to go, you know?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, you just kind of mentioned it, but let's talk about this because so many people ask me, does your husband still drink? What does your husband think about this? And then they ask him, like, is this bothering you? Da 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 da, you know? So, like, what was your experience with your husband? Like, were you like, hey, I'm not going to drink anymore? I almost felt stupid. Like,
I know not, and I didn't even tell him for those first couple days. Then I was like, "Okay, he's got to realize that at dinner I'm not, like, pouring wine. I'm over here, like, LaCroix with lemon slices." I still would pour it in, like, a wine glass. That really helped me at first because it was such a part of my routine, like, making
Mhm.
dinner and having it. So I would use the same wine glass that I had always used, like, a stemless, and just would pour LaCroix in there and put orange slices, lemon slices, whatever. So I'm like, "He's got to realize something's different." So I finally did. Once I made it through the first 2 days and was like, "Okay, I can keep going a little bit longer at least," I mentioned it, and he actually was like, "Well, I'm not gonna drink this month either," like, he thought it would be kind of fun to do, and he was never as much of a drinker as I was. I mean, he I would have wine every single night. I mean, he'd have, like, beer on the weekends. If we went out with other people, he would drink more. If it wasn't for me, he probably wouldn't have drank as much as he drank 'cause
same.
like,
I know. My husband will be like, "Oh, I haven't had a drink for a couple of weeks." And I'm like, "What?" Like, you know?
Oh, right? Like, how does that just happen without
Yeah.
intention and set dates and things all around to support you? Yeah. Yeah, so it was definitely not it was never hard for him to have to not drink. But then he would still like, if we would, again, like, go out with friends, would have, like, a beer or whatever out, and it didn't bother me, and also it felt kinda nice, like, I'm even if he had 1 beer, I'd be like, "Well, I'm driving now." Like, it was sort of that feeling of being completely sober was more freeing than I would've thought it would've been. I would've thought I was gonna feel like this is so boring or I'm such being left out, but I really kind of enjoy it.
Oh, I've actually had fun with that whole driving thing. Like, I'll even be like, "You guys can have drinks, I'll drive."
Yeah, yeah.
And I've had some funny trips. We went on a girls' trip and, like, there was, like, 10 of us piled in my friend's, like, husband's giant truck, you know? And I'm
Yeah,
like, "If you guys don't shut up," and, like but I mean, it was, like, one of my favorite memories, like, I'm driving and we're, like, and I'm like,
like the
"Hey, if
mom.
we get pulled over, I'm gonna be, like, 100% sober."
Yes, isn't that I mean, isn't that just so freeing? Oh, I love it, yeah, so I don't mind that, and he would never probably the most he would even have would be 2, even, after, so it was not a big deal, and then but, yeah, I think the last year he hasn't I noticed when we would go out, he would order, like, a non-alcoholic beer. He enjoys those because he always liked, like, IPAs and sort of those stronger flavored ones, so he can get those, like, the athletic beer, or there's so many of those
Mhm.
options. I was never a big beer person, so you know, doesn't appeal to me, but yeah, so it's been a year, and I don't know if that's his intention to, like, always to never drink or what, but he runs, like, ultra marathons, so he has a lot of focus on
He does? Okay, do you run?
no, not
No?
particularly.
Okay.
I did a little bit. I did before we adopted my daughter, I did a half marathon, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm done." Like, check. So, no, I don't run.
Yeah, I've made it up to 10K. So I've ran a 10K, I'm running another 10K for my 40th birthday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so my run today was like 4.5 miles, but I follow a lot of these like ultra marathon runners and I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm intrigued, but also like mortified.
It's crazy. I mean, it's like I guess he's done a couple 250s, and then he did 100, and I thought, "Well, that's just gonna be the end of it," but he seems to be wanting to do another 100.
Which 100 did he do?
Oh gosh, it was here locally.
Where
I
you
mean, not like I'm in North Carolina towards
Yeah.
the coast, so he didn't have to go very far, but I cannot exactly
Okay, yeah. I
where.
know I follow a lot of people who do like the Cocodona 100.
Oh, is that out near
It's
you?
in like Sedona in Arizona.
Okay, that would be cool, but
Yeah. It's kind of wild though. I think they experience like both temperatures too,
oh
because they
gosh.
climb so much.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's kind of flatter here for sure than yeah, because 'cause we're not
Well,
near the mountains.
one of the runners I was following through it, Andy Glaze, I don't know if you follow him on you should just follow him if you don't, okay? He's a lot of fun to follow, but the one time he, like, fell asleep, he didn't pass out, he fell asleep while he was running and, like, cut his head open, and I'm like, "How would that be to just be running and then just be like, boop?"
It's like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. That's dedication or something.
Yeah, because I think he'd been running for, like, 40 hours or 48 hours straight or whatever. It was on a I think it might have been no, it wasn't the Cocodona 100. He goes and does them, like, all over the world. He's crazy. He's, like, kind of like David Goggins.
I'm sure he does, probably. I'm assuming he probably does, but
It's worth a follow, okay? You'll be, like,
yeah.
perplexed. I'm, like, inspired and perplexed all at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. I just can't imagine. I don't like running that much or definitely not that long to be able to just do it. And then toenails fall off. It's a whole thing.
Right? That's what I'm saying. I'm like, "You guys," I'm like, "I'm gonna stick with my 4.5 miles. That was hard, okay? I'm
Yeah,
gonna stick with that."
yeah. Yes,
I mean,
that's
who knows? The next thing you know, Emily, you're gonna see me post to my stories like, "I'm training for the Cocodona 100." You'll be like, "Wow, that escalated." All right, let's talk about sobriety tips though, especially for, this midlife, later life, your kids are getting older, that type of stuff. One thing I talk about a lot though is like habit swapping. Like what did you find yourself picking up new habits or trying new things or like what's your advice around that?
Yeah, so right when I stopped, January 2021, it was, still definitely right in the height of COVID, so there wasn't options necessarily. I mean, I'm sure I could have probably done things online, found online, knitting groups or something, I don't know, but I kinda just used that first year. I mean, the COVID part of it really probably did help me because I wasn't going out anyway, but just to kind of really almost like hibernate and read. I was reading lots of, quit lit books. I just spent time, like, trying to learn more about myself and what I liked and getting out of my other routines. I mean, physically, like, changing where I would go in the evenings because to me, like, being in the kitchen, I would just kinda hang out in the kitchen and keep, drinking, like, scrolling on, internet or whatever, just staying in that kitchen area. So I physically like said, I'm gonna change my spot. Like I would go hang in the bedroom and like have hot tea and read and just changing all of that really helped. And then as I moved out of that first year, I started trying to figure out what do I like to do? Because drinking was such my hobby. I mean,
Mhm.
if somebody would say, "What's your hobby?" I'm like,
Wine tasting. You can make it though. Like alcoholics can make anything. I'm like, I like to travel and go to wine tastings and visit vineyards, you know?
I'm a connoisseur.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I sort of almost not a whim. I mean, now looking back, it wasn't a whim, but I guess it was a year ago, so I was 3 years sober, decided to join the yoga teacher training program that was being offered at the studio that's close to me that I'd been to it a handful of times, but I just thought, "You know what? This is a way for me to try something totally different, meet new people," because I was also feeling isolated with you kind of I don't want people to think you have to lose your friends if you become sober in midlife because I think that that's probably a legitimate fear that women have.
Mhm.
Like, wait, I have this social circle and yeah, we drink together, but we're friends. And so I don't want people to think, okay, if I stop drinking, I lose all my friends. That's not true. But it also brings an opportunity to meet other people who might be more, you know, are wanting to try new things. My therapist was actually the one, she was like I said, "Yeah, I just feel like I need to, like, meet new people," and she was like, "You should probably leave the house then more often." I was like, "Thank you." And she had we talked about maybe going to AA and she mentioned yoga. She said, "I know you've talked about yoga." She said, "No, not everybody goes to yoga studios sober, but, you might find that there might be a community of people there that are." And I did. So that has just been life-changing to have basically started something that I really never did before. And doing the yoga teacher training, there was a lot of, self-reflection and that was just really helpful too. And it was something that if I had done that when I was drinking, I wouldn't I mean, the physical part of it, I might have been like, okay, but I never would have gotten into the spiritual part of it and just the learning about myself. I wouldn't have been able to do it. I mean, wouldn't have been honest or authentic.
Well, I think when you're drinking, you're willing to like kind of do these same things. I definitely identify like high functioning alcoholic.
Mm.
So I was going to Tony Robbins and I was doing all this mindset work and like doing all these things. But I think what you're doing is just kind of almost putting on a facade. It's like a sliding door and you're like, well, I'll open it a little bit, but you don't actually open it all the way. You kind of almost like block yourself. Well, alcohol blocks you from like actually opening the door and being like, this is who I am.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. There's some, even like my massage therapist, she does like a wellness coaching program. And she had mentioned it to me several times. I've been going to for years and years. And then I finally did it that January, right after I quit drinking. And I told her, I was like, I've wanted to do this with you for so long because I really, enjoy you, appreciate you. And I said, but I knew if I was drinking the amount I was drinking, I wasn't going to tell you that. I said, and I feel like I wouldn't have been able to fully invest in what you have to offer. And she was surprised. I mean, she had no idea. Most people didn't have no idea. I mean, because they're not sitting in my kitchen with me every night, so they wouldn't know. But it definitely getting it out, just getting alcohol out is what opened so many floodgates. And yeah, you have to feel your feelings now, which some people are like, that's that can be the hard part of not numbing out all the feelings anymore. But I would never go back. to the numbing ever.
No. Well, once you just start feeling them, you're like, "Oh, like, I'm sad," and, like, that's okay, or like, "Oh, I'm really happy." Like, you get to experience emotions, which I think is the whole part of being human.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad passed away in 2016, and so, I mean, I was, not obviously not sober then, and I just think now, gosh, did I ever I mean, since then, I've worked through some of it, but I don't feel like I really even completely comprehended everything that was happening. It just gave me more opportunity to just numb, 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 and so, yeah, and that was the other thing, I was like, I never want to be like that again when somebody I love passes away or gets married or whatever. I just don't ever wanna be in that state of just being numb to it. It's really that was this thing I could feel shame or guilt about, but that doesn't do anybody any favors either. I can just talk about it, admit it, and know that I've grown from there.
I know I saw a TikTok just this morning, and it was one of those that, like, really hit me. And it said, "My favorite part about being sober is getting to fall in love with my wife again." And then it said, like, "Damn, I was" basically, I can't remember what he said, but it was along the lines of, like, "Damn, I was such a loser. Like, this is a really amazing woman that I've missed out on."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be easy to and like with my kids, I'm sure you can relate too with having had young kids during the time when I was drinking and just things that I would rush through, like bedtime routines, all that, just so I could get back down and have
Mhm.
another drink, but I can't beat myself up about it, but it's just part of my journey.
I feel like I was always just kind of pushing them away?
Mhm.
Just like you're just kind of pushing them away always.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, it's just it can make you sad. The another kinda, like, moment that stands out in my mind is I don't know if I guess they probably still do it, like, with Netflix, you can pick the little avatar for each member of the family, and I guess I don't remember if it was my son or my daughter, they're 4 years apart, but somebody had put, like, a red wine glass for above my name, and I thought, is that how they see me?" And so one of my favorite things I did probably like a month after I'd stopped drinking was I went in and changed it to, whatever, like SpongeBob character or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And one of them noticed, they're like, "Oh, you changed it." I said, "Yeah, I don't drink anymore." They're like, they were excited. They never really complained to me anything about my drinking, but I know that obviously they were aware of it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made my avatar a glass of red wine.
Like, is that how the world sees me?
I know. It's like, this is horrible. So that was a great feeling to go in there and change that little avatar.
Oh, you're like, "F
I
this,
don't
it's
know.
out." Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder what it is now. I haven't looked lately. Who knows? It could be something even worse.
True. It could be Ursula. It could be yeah. So, when I was kind of stalking online, I noticed that you're a mindset coach, an alcohol-free life coach, success coach, neuro-linguistic programming, and hypnosis training. So you've really, like, dived into, like, finding, like, all those new parts of you and also, like, how you can help other people.
Yeah. Yeah, the course I did was a really robust course. I mean, that it was a 10-month program, and it had all of those certifications offered in the program, with always, like, alcohol-free kind of being, like, the baseline of all of it. So that was really nice to learn. I mean, even, like, the hypnosis, that was just cool. Like, I had never had an experience with it, and we got to practice on each other. But n yeah, having those tools sort of at my disposal now to be able to use with potential clients, I think it's great, and it was really fun to learn about because I had never had any experience with any of it before. So, yeah, it was nice. I'm a pharmacist, that's what I've done for the last, like, 30 years. I haven't been full-time in a long time, but so all of these other modalities, I'm like, "Ooh, I coulda gone to school for some other things other than just, like, science based."
Oh, I love actually when you like, okay, so like here's the science, right? And then you're like, and here's like the feelings. And I kind of like love when they can come together.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and you would have thought I mean, when I was in pharmacy school, I was not drinking much. I didn't start drinking until after I got married. So we talked some about alcohol and effects. I mean, not near anywhere near what I know now about the effects, but yeah, you would have thought that could have maybe made me never drink, but it
No,
didn't.
because you kind of just like, you're like, that's nice, you know? It's
Yeah,
almost like, sure, I could get hit by a bus.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what are
Yeah.
the odds that I'm gonna
You're
be
like,
drinking?
sure, that's nice. You mentioned you called it Quit Lit, which I'm assuming is like sober literature or like
Yes, yeah,
books. Do you
yeah.
have any recommendations? Because that's one thing too. I like, have you ever read The Big Book? Actually, that's what I should ask you.
No, I have not. I have
Yeah,
not.
that was the first one I listened to because I went to AA like day one, super hungover. And this lady there was like, "Hey, I bought you a copy of the Big Book," and she had her number in it. And she's like, "Just read this." But if
Mm,
you've looked at the Big Book, that's a big ass book.
yeah.
So I downloaded it on Audible and I listened to the entire Big Book.
Oh, nice. I
Yeah,
didn't.
but what my favorite book is actually is it Sober-ish? Yeah, it's Sober-ish. I love that one. Have you read that one?
I think I'm trying to think if I have that read it because I read a lot during those first few
Yeah,
months, or if I just have it like saved in my in like to read list because that was one that came up a lot, like that I would see recommended. The very first one I read was This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, and so I started kind of following her right away, and it talked a lot about, or it talks a lot about how just how alcohol works, like what it's doing inside of your body. And, but then also like some of her personal stories interspersed in there. It was really something that by the end of it, it made me go, okay, I'm never going to drink again because it was just like a well laid out story of why you shouldn't. And it was very relatable too. So that was the first one that like hit home. And Quit Like a Woman by Holly Whitaker.
I've
That was
got that in my Audible. Yeah, that one's
Yeah.
recommended a lot.
Yeah, I think you'll like that one. I mean, it's very she is on fire and just it's really good. It's very powerful. And then it's called The Sober Diaries by Claire Pooley. And it was she's from yeah, she lives in England and it was just her story. I think she started a blog back before called like Mummy Was a Secret Drinker, something like that. So she's funny. And I was far enough into my like sober journey by then that I could just read it and relate to everything she was saying and also kind of laugh at some of her stories because she was laughing at the stories too. That one I think I've read it twice just because it was cute. Her description of like the pink cloud effect was really vivid. It was a great little analogy that she had for it. And so yeah, those are my top ones at the time.
I might steal that Quit Lit. I've never heard it called that. I'm like, I like that.
Yeah, I don't know where, I heard it. Who knows? Probably once I searched enough of it, it would just be like, "Oh, you want Quitlet." So, but
Yeah.
that helped me a ton. Just being able to just read that and just get it into my brain and my body and learning things. And also just like knowing you're not alone. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's so isolating. And to read these stories, you're like, this person. And yeah, it just opens you up to I'm not alone. And alcohol is made to be addictive, and that's why I'm addicted to it. It's not something I did wrong. It's just how it was designed to be. So,
Well, I know Soberish was a big one for me because I was sitting there and I'm like listening to the book and I'm like, this woman is explaining my own thoughts. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God. And it also makes sense why you really need to stay like tapped in because a lot of times I don't get it. I'm like, I don't want this to be my entire personality.
yeah.
But then also I'm like, okay, you have to like maintain that vision because outside of it is, the fancy bottle service and, all the pretty marketing and it's designed to not be, the world is designed to not be sober. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think staying plugged in is to anything, if it's working with you, if it's watching sober TikToks, I noticed you had some great Instagram reels. So, reading books, podcasts, it helps so much. You're like, I'm not crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Keeping that in my like feeds, because I'll follow other sober people, sober or coaches too. It it's just nice to just to see it, not constantly. Like you said, you don't want to make it your personality. I mean, at first you kind of have to make it your personality. At least I do.
It's my Instagram's personality now. So
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you really just have to go and I agree too, just like keeping it keeping it at the front of my mind, even like hearing podcasts. I think Mel Robbins, I know you talked about her. I love her. And she just had a guest on recently who was a doctor talking about the effects of alcohol. And I just love that that's just kind of popping up now on just, regular podcasts, not ones that are focused on it. And anytime I hear something like that, I'm going to listen to it, like I'm never going to feel like, oh, I already know everything about it. Never. So, and yeah, knowing that you're not alone is,
Yeah.
you know,
So, how does this concept of freedom evolve from women as they move from wine mom to empty nester?
yeah. So for me, I had no idea like the amount of freedom I was going to feel when I stopped. I just thought it was going to be hard and it was maybe going to be lonely. I just had no idea that it was going to actually change the way my mind is, change the things that I want to do. So I feel like during midlife, sometimes it can, when you think of like empty nest and menopause and all that, it can just have this like negative connotation to it. But I'm seeing that it can actually be very positive, like a great time to make changes in our life, a great time to learn new hobbies, new skills, and just figure out like where you want this next chapter to go. So the freedom that I found, by getting alcohol out, just completely getting out of my space. I mean, it opens up time, because you're not spending 3 hours or whatever at night drinking anymore. So it opens up time and money. I mean, how much money, gosh, have I saved by not drinking? And just mental space, being able to, or not having to think about when's my next class going to be, or like if you're on a vacation, kind of rushing through whatever you're doing to know that you're gonna get to the happy hour.
Oh,
Having
I don't
all
know. I was just like, vacation, we could start at when we woke up, you know?
yeah, yeah, it's vacation, right? Exactly. So, I feel like midlife is a great time to get all of that out, to give back time, give back money, give back your brain space to, really enjoy this next chapter and not see it as such a like, the going down the hill, or I guess that's what they used to say, right? Downhill. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be it is a whole new chapter.
Well,
So
have you looked? You mentioned this, you said menopause, but
mm,
so I'm in perimenopause, and this is like, I have labs to prove it. I have hormones, and I don't have a lot of hormones actually. So, what my nurse practitioner, and I had two nurse practitioners on my podcast who very, very like, very adamant that they were like, alcohol and menopause do not go together.
yeah, no, yeah, I mean, the way that we metabolize alcohol changes too once you've gone through menopause or perimenopause too. I mean, just the metabolism of it changes, and then it messes with your estrogen. What little estrogen that you have, you don't want it to be like totally messed up by alcohol. And I think that's another reason why women sometimes feel like once they've gotten, maybe around menopause age, and they're like, "Oh, I just can't." I used to be able to have 2 glasses of wine and feel fine. Now I have 1 glass and I feel like shit in the morning. And that's not in their mind. I mean, that's really because of the way that their body is handling it now. It's different. So, yeah, it is definitely another great time. Another reason why it's a great time to quit is because your body is not doing the same with it that it used to.
People keep telling me this. They're like, you hit 40 and it's like an off switch goes off, and you're like, I don't give a shit what you think. And they're like, and then you hit 50 and you're like, I definitely do not give any like F's what you think. And so
Yeah,
I honestly think, however old you are listening, but it's like, stop giving a crap what everyone else thinks, and it's what you actually think.
exactly. Yeah, and that's freeing too. I mean, I lived my life as a people pleaser for sure. And so that's something that just through the self-growth, learning about myself, and even with the yoga teacher training and all of that, learning that I don't have to be a people pleaser. There's no way I can please everybody, and it doesn't even matter. I don't need to please anybody but myself. So that's been a journey for sure for me, and would never have felt this freedom around that if I was still drinking for sure.
It's It's amazing. And I don't know quite how to like tell people sometimes. I'm like, you just almost have to experience it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I didn't understand. I had no idea what was possible, and I don't even know if I was really around that many people who were sober too, so I probably wasn't getting much feedback.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you're like me, but I'm like, well, we'll never be like friends because you don't drink.
Yeah, yeah. It's when I first started meeting people who don't drink anymore, you know, it was just like, "Oh my gosh," like, you get it, you know? And I do know a few people who never drank, and that's great too, but I there's something about having gone through this experience. It's like you get it, you know? And it's so fun to talk about too, like, to be able to just really talk about the things, even the embarrassing things, but then just the changes, to have that with somebody who's been through what you've been through. Yeah.
It's amazing. Okay, so now you're helping other women kind of discover their path to freedom by going alcohol free. What does that look like?
I know it can be scary, right? And so I'm trying to just wanting women to come to me who are, sober curious or interested in cutting back, like, that all of that is fine. It's a good place to start. And so I just want to build a community for women to feel safe, to feel heard, to feel like they can get advice from other people. That's what I really zoned in on that I was missing. And I didn't completely have that during when I got sober, I didn't really have that community. And now I've witnessed it and been part of it. And I'm like, this is the secret sauce. Like, having a group can be in different phases, but to be able to talk and share. And so, and then like they would see other people's freedom, based on what we're sharing too. So I feel like that is how I can best help women right now, and having my experience, and then, the shared group experience too, I think can be, yeah, could just show what it could be like.
Yeah, so I know you have like a group program coming up. So if you guys want to check out Emily, Emily Allen, what is your Instagram handle?
It's at Living Free with Emily.
Yes.
So
And you guys, I followed her. I was like, I loved your reels and I know you're dishing lots of good information. Do you hang out anywhere else online?
I have my website is www.livingfreewithemily.com. And so that has like the information. I've got a free quiz on there. What's your empowered alcohol personality, alcohol free personality? So it's kind of a fun, like, what's your powers?
Yeah. What's your alcohol personality? You're like
Yeah.
bad.
Right. Oops. Yeah. I had in the free part there. So
I
that's
will make sure, yeah, I'll make sure that we link that up in our show notes if people want to go check it out. And
okay.
thank you so much for your time today, Emily.
Thank
And
you.
thanks so much for being brave and sharing your story.
Oh, thank you. And the same to you, because it's scary to get it out there and open up to the world. So proud of you.
Thank you. And thank you guys for listening to the Samantha Parker Show.